Vice Mayor, Commissioner Castillo, Schwartz, and Seipel. Sorry, I don't have a bow tie on for you this evening. So we have, as Mr. Dodge said, grouped the projects. And the first one we're going to start out with is the category of sewer collection.
Mr. Cooper, just for the record, tell the record who you are. We know who you are, but the record does not.
Yes, Mr. Gorin. I'm John Cooper. I'm an engineer with the Public Services Department. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so first project has to do with force main repairs. I'm sure you're all well aware of the system the city has, some 900 some odd miles of water and sewer piping. These are the force mains that carry the sewage from the pump stations to the plants. I'm sure you realize that they would have ongoing maintenance and repair and operations that are needed, as with all cities. And we've identified three areas of improvement for next year. The first is the cobblestone area west of I-75. The second and third are both in the Pines Village area. These are, again, older pipes, pipes that have deteriorated and or need some sort of repair. And at this point, we have allocated $650,000 for the repair of the force main pipes.
Mayor, are we allowed to ask a question? Or
I think so.
yes,
You want to ask as you go along, fine.
could I ask a question of him? You said that these older pipes that were needing repair, and you highlighted three areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Cobblestone and Pines Village.
Yes, ma'am.
Several, and a couple in Pines Village, I guess, because they were older and what have you. Cobblestone is a fairly new development. What, can you explain what the problem is with that?
Yes, ma'am, I can. Cobblestone is quite new, but cobblestone was identified because of some high maintenance problems. And when we say maintenance, with a newer pipe, it's not that it's caved in because it's 50 years old. It's got some sort of problem because of usually the geotechnical conditions to which it was laid under. So in other words, the piping has gone in the ground. The ground is very rocky, what we call high cap rock. And it could be that the loads over the pipe, such as from vehicles and so forth, may be causing these breaks. We don't exactly know why, but we do know that we've had some activity with repairs in that area. So we want to spend some time and money investigating why that is. That is, of the three areas, $50,000 estimated to be allocated for that. So that's why a new pipe may still have problems. It has to do with how it was put in, what the geotechnical conditions were at the time, what's happening over the pipe and stuff like that. And there's no real easy answer. It's just that we know we've had some repairs, so we're going to go in there and take a look and see what we can do.
May I ask one more question? So then I guess then that would make me wonder if when the design for these are put in, there seems to be perhaps something that's being, I hate to say overlooked, but maybe not taken into consideration when designs are happening, that if in fact the geophysical around it is not prepared properly for it to happen, or placed in an area where you would expect heavy loads to go over it. So how do we deal with that even? I understand it's already in the ground, so you got to deal with it now to fix it. But what do we do going forward that we don't have these kinds of issues?
Yes, that's a very, very insightful question. And I'll just say that of the many, many, many hundreds of miles of piping that's in the city, this is a rarity. So while it's important to identify a going forward solution for something like that, by and large, this really doesn't happen. So the engineering standards that are involved in laying pipe they're nationwide American Water Works Association standards approved by Broward County and the Health Department, on and on and on. You have an engineer who follows those standards. He has a representative in the field who watches, and the pipe is manufactured to certain nationwide standards, but still stuff happens. This could be, maybe a bad piece or two of pipe. It could be a bad laying condition like we mentioned, or the process of backfilling and compaction didn't go properly or something. Very hard to tell, but I would just say that in general, by and large, the piping goes in correctly and the standards are in place, and that for some reason, there's an anomaly there in cobblestone.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a follow-up to that point. Have we looked at either blasting from Miramar or the I-75 construction project vibration leading to potential substrate loss and that sort of thing?
No, sir, that is an excellent point. I'll make note of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you. And we're moving on to item number 2, which is our sanitary sewer evaluation survey. This is a very, very important item. What we plan to do is, over the 5-year capital improvement plan, is to firstly study the gravity pipes. This is not the pumped pipes, but this is the gravity sewage pipes. Because when water enters those pipes from either the ground, because it's already in the groundwater, or it comes in from the top, from rainwater, all of that excess water causes excessive pumping costs, excessive wear and tear on pumps, and most importantly, costs to treat that water, both by our plant and by our City of Hollywood agreement. So the city has actually, through the help of Jacobs, already identified 3 or 4 areas that they're proactively working to get under control. And as we go into the next year, we're going to do a citywide study, and then as a result of that study, implement some solutions over the next 5 years so that we can reduce this. It's called I&I, infiltration from the top, infiltration from the bottom, inflow from the top, and that will greatly help with the maintenance costs of the city and, of course, the treatment costs to both plants. So we anticipate doing this next year for approximately $250,000. The big costs will be in the following 4 years when we do the linings and the repairs and so forth for the things that we discovered during the study. Okay, moving on then to the next item is our delightful fats, oils, and grease program. I'm sure you realize what this is. We have numerous restaurants. We don't quite know the total right now, but we think it's over 100, and you know we all love fried food. So what happens to the grease, what happens to the fats and the oils in a restaurant, it goes to a box underground called a separator, which is designed to keep it from going into our sewage system. However, if that particular proprietor has a problem or it's not done regularly, it will violate the code. City has a standard that has to be met, and those will flow downstream and cause lots and lots of problems for us. We spend approximately, just very, very crudely, 4 times more cleaning than we need to because of fats, oils, and grease. We can save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if we can work harder at precluding those from getting into the system. So all this is a $50,000 estimated budget amount to engage a software writer to help us create a database system to monitor those grease traps and to help those owners enforce themselves to meet the city's ordinances and the state ordinances. So it's a big, giant, hairy monster, but it needs to be addressed. And the first step we're going to take to address that is to bring in a computer specialist who deals with this. We'll inventory everything, we'll work with the public, and get them into compliance so we can reduce our cleaning and our maintenance costs. Of course, both at the lift stations and at the plant where it all ends up eventually. So there's some lovely pictures there of this, but basically it's very nasty clogging substances that comes from fats, oils, and grease. Okay, next item is under the category of other equipment for sewage collection, and this is where we're starting to aggregate some things together. Our category 4 has 4 items. The first is updating the SCADA system for the sewage lift stations, SCADA just being an acronym for the computer talking to the pump. So that's in need of updating. We do need to purchase some new heavy equipment for the lift station crews for things that have become aged and reached their useful life. And we have a variety of small things like pumps and generators and hoses that need to be replaced. So that's what that is, ongoing replacement program for those nuts and bolts. Okay, the next item is under the category of rehabilitation replacement of sewage lift stations, and 63-122. Next slide, please. So the city has 200 lift stations or pump stations, whatever you want to call them, and they are always in need of repair and replacement. This program replaces approximately 15 per year, and if you do the math, it works out pretty well. They don't last but maybe 10 to 15 years. They run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this is an ongoing program that has been in place for many years. There are a couple listed there specifically, numbers 182 and 19, that were called out specifically for some technical reasons. But generally speaking, this is the ongoing replacement of wastewater pumping stations, completely necessary for the operation of the utility. Okay, moving right along then, we're going to go into sewer treatment plant. And this category is 6022. A variety of things are going on there at the sewer plant. In this project number 6, we're going to do three things. First of all, this has to do with the biosolids handling facility known as the BCR. And we're just hoping to make some improvements between this and the next item to the BCR building to increase its efficiency. Basically what happens is the bottom sludge of the wastewater plant goes over to the building, and the system turns it into basically fertilizer-looking pellets. And so we want to increase some of the efficiency issues there by improving the transfer system, the auger that's there. We want to upgrade that and speed it up a little bit. We also want to extend the canopy for the trucks because we've gone to the extra large trucks now that weren't envisioned at the time of the building construction, again to increase the efficiency because this is a part of the wastewater plant and things need to continue to flow. So that, in addition to that, in that category we have the East Blower building where we have our new blower system for the wastewater plant. Some of the equipment in there needs to be cooled, and we're planning on adding air conditioning systems to that because it's necessary for the longevity of that equipment. The next item is number 7, also related to the BCR building. This building does not have a permanent automatic auxiliary power system, so we hope to put in a standby generator set with an automatic transfer switch like what we just experienced twice. And of course the intent there is that we want to keep that building moving during the emergency times so that the plant doesn't get packed up. So the plant has emergency power by law, by statute, but the BCR doesn't. So we want to bring in some emergency power there such that we don't have plant backups on the sludge side. Okay, moving right along then to item number 8. This is sewer treatment other equipment. There are 5 items that are brought together there. Again, very similar in nature to other items. The first one is simply the replacement of an old underground airline that's leaking. Of course, you know that we have a lot of expensive, high horsepower air handling equipment, and if the air is leaking, we're wasting electricity, we're wasting money. So just a picture there of a rusty pipe to make the point that we need to get that under control so we don't waste any electricity by the leaking pipe. The next item we'd like to have is a scissor lift to access the higher elevation repairs. This is needed because of safety requirements and OSHA requirements so that we can access those high elevation items safely. The next item is the SCADA, again, computer talking to the plant upgrade for the wastewater treatment plant that is many years old and needs of upgrade. I know we all suffer through upgrades with our phones and it's all the same. Computers run the water plant and the wastewater plant also. And then we also have a number of pumps that are in need of replacement. The east half of the plant, influent pumps, are as old as 1988 or 1984, and some of them are even offline, and we need to replace them and bring them up to current standards and new valves and so forth. And we also want to add an overflow basin pump that's needed because the other one has been out of service for many years. The overflow basin keeps water in it and houses some nice ducks, but we don't want to keep the water in there if we don't have to.
I have a question. On the corroded pipe.
Yes, sir.
What's the approximate cost to replace that?
Yes, sir. I believe we have $70,000 allocated to that, sir.
And how many years will it last?
20.
And how much savings, the electrical savings, can be measured on the
yes.
on the break even?
Very, very good question. What's the payback period on that improvement? I can't quantify that for you. I can just tell you that the air management system is one of the items that's under consideration for next year, we hope, to do more analysis because there's more than one issue. This one is so obvious that when it rains, it's bubbling out of the ground. So I'm sorry I don't have a good answer, but I do know that the payback would be pretty significant because it's obviously leaking a lot of air.
And I guess the follow-up, how many years or how long has this observation of bubbling out of the ground been going on?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
Is there anybody who can? Who's here today?
Any staffers want to try to take that? Yeah, sir, I don't think we have a good answer. And I think if the answer we gave you might not be a good answer, but we do know that it's leaking.
I just want the answer. So if, City Manager, if you can just get that back to us, all of us, at whenever that is found, that would be awesome.
Yes, sir. Was there anything else, Commissioner?
I definitely think that a $70,000 for 20 years investment.
It's not a question of.
I didn't say it was. It's just my point,
No.
that I think it's a great investment for a 20-year return.
Yes, sir. Thank you. May I add that we're going to stainless steel in this. So you might think, well, that is a lot of money. But we're going to what used to be ductile iron. Years ago, this pipe was put in by Senville. That's
think
how
it's a
old
good
it is?
investment.
Yes, sir. Okay, then, moving right along, were there any other questions on item 8, or we're good? Okay. So number 9, back to the wastewater plant. This is a photograph of a surge tank, and it's a critical component for the utility. There are 2 of them. And surge tanks take out the variation in sewage flow. As you know, we all kind of take a shower at about the same time. We all kind of eat dinner about the same time. So the sewage flow goes up and down during the day, and that's bad for the plant. You want the plant to have a nice smooth and linear flow. That gives you the best effluent quality to meet your effluent standards, which you consistently meet. Unfortunately, it's made of steel, and it's big and old, and they all need to be refurbished. This is a common theme throughout all utilities, and this one is slated to be done. It's actually out for bid right now with some other items that was approved for bidding earlier this month, and will be coming in next month.
Question
So-
on that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Schwartz?
With it being steel, is that corrosion exterior? Is that corrosion interior? Is that corrosion at the point of connection of the roof line? And my final question: how long has this been in this condition, and how long does it typically take to get to this point?
Yeah, these are very, the first part of your question is easy to answer. So the steel, the corrosion is both on the inside and the outside. So these plants, all of them are made of steel with the exception of the lids that you see there, the shiny silver. And so sewage is very, very acidic. So it eats away at it. We blast it, sandblasting, we prepare it with surface preparation, with primers, and we put high-quality, very thick industrial paints on it. And this lasts a number of years, but you cannot get away from the corrosiveness of sewage. So it's happening clearly on the outside. Excuse me. The inside's not so easy because you can't see on the inside because it's full of sewage. So in order to take it down and to inspect it, you have to shut down the system, which we don't like to do because of the reason I gave in the beginning. So the interval of maintenance can vary from 5 to 10 or 15 or 20 years, depending on, what the suspicions may be about what's going on inside. Do we think that it's getting filled with fats, oils, and grease? Is it filled with rags? If things are running smoothly, which does normally occur at your plant, it runs very smoothly, there's not really a high motivation to shut the thing down and go test it. So the answer to the question is the steel plants need to be maintained on a variable schedule based on how well do they weather the sewage.
So how long did it take to get to this point? What were the intervals of the blasting, of the painting, to the point that it's at its end of, useful service life requiring a rehab?
I don't know the correct answer, but I will get that answer back to you. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to the water plant, as seen by the pretty blue heading. And we're talking about improvements other than buildings in this particular category. The first one is to do with the lime feeding system. Of course, you may know that lime is the coagulant that's used in the first step of treating the water. And those systems do need to be repaired and refurbished periodically. And we have currently $100,000 slated for next year for a lime feed system. The next two are related. There are the wall projects. We currently, as you know, have fences around the water plant and the east well field. That is required by federal law for the security of the plant. And it's anticipated that walls are preferable. And so we've gone out and done some preliminary pricing and estimates of quantities and so forth. And we've budgeted this amount for putting walls around both the water plant and the well field on the order of $830,000.
Question?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Schwartz.
This may be more for our police chief. When it comes to Homeland Security, it's quite apparent the reason we have to have these facilities secured. You had indicated that you anticipate concrete walls. Is that something that you anticipate Homeland Security making the recommendation?
No.
Okay, so my question, if Homeland Security isn't making the recommendation, who would be making that recommendation?
I think public services in general are under the impression that it would be, number one, an improvement not only for security because of, it's not a Homeland Security question. It's a question of whether or not the city wants to sort of be proactive about increasing risks associated with these types of things. I mean, so I don't have a standard to point to other than the federal standard, which would allow a fence. But the standard that we have now, there may be some concerns about the aesthetics of the fence, and there may be some concerns that the wall will improve the look of the neighborhood and help with the security of the facilities.
Because of the sensitive nature of the security questions, I think I'm a little bit more comfortable meeting with administration after this meeting, but here's some of the things I'm looking at. Aesthetics should not be the priority when you're going to spend $800,000 on the look. It needs to protect the asset.
Yes.
Now, it's apparent that if there were security cameras on site, you can't see through a wall, but you can see through chain link.
Yes.
I also see, as far as security goes, multiple layers of fencing versus one row of fencing, for that matter, could also help with access points. And again, I would lean on our police chief and his assessment with his team to determine what is best suited for it. Now, with respect to this plan itself, the position, the location of this is so far set back from University Drive that it's obscured by bushes from an aesthetic standpoint. On the north side, along Johnson Street, you can't do anything about it because it's the front of the place and you have a parking lot there. So it's not like a wall would be, I can't imagine a wall would be proposed on Johnson Street. So I need to get a little bit more information
Okay.
from our police department to weigh in on this, what this process is going to be. I mean, there's laser technology when it comes to breaches and that sort of. There's technology that can keep us safe without having to spend $800,000 on concrete blocks. That's all I'm getting to. So let's see what we can do with Mr. Dodge between now and August, please.
Yeah, and I think, it's a good point, but I think any security, obviously somebody thought we needed it. Any security to our water plants, I think is a great idea. And we've seen people, places now that had just simple pipes in the ground, people have driven right through it and gone into the building. They now have put concrete barriers. In fact, we talked about it at this commission meeting, about daycare centers being increased for those people that might drive through that. So it's an interesting subject, but I'm sure somebody had a reason
Yes.
for doing it.
So I hear you saying that a justification analysis would be
Yeah.
requested?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Perfectly reasonable.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we're on to another water plant improvement, repair, maintenance, rehabilitation. Item number 11, another component of the lime feed system called a slaker. Takes the powdered lime, turns it into a liquid slurry, and ships it over to the treatment units. Those things need to be rehabilitated regularly, and we plan on doing the first one next year at the tune of $50,000, and then we're going to follow that up in the following 2 years. We also have a big ticket item here, similar to the wastewater plant rehabilitation of treatment unit A. Treatment unit is one of 4 that we have, and 3 are online at all times. One is always rotated out for repairs. This one's turn to go out for repairs.
Question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Schwartz.
It may be just a clerical error in the backup, but it says it's rebuilt every 2 to 3 years. Now, if it's being rotated, as you mentioned, is it being rotated every 2 or is it being rotated every 3?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I was very unclear. The slakers are rotated, are rebuilt every 2 to 3 years. So the slakers are smaller components, and they are under such operational duress because of the nastiness of the powder and the liquid and a lot of corrosive environments. So these machines get replaced, refurbished every 3 years.
Okay.
The-
When we budget these things,
Yes.
it's so that we rebuild them in that given year, right?
Yes.
So when it's 2 to 3 years, now we're off cycle. We're either going to do it in year 2 or we're going to do it in year 3, or do we put?
There are 3 of them.
Right, so that means they're done every 6 years or every 9 years, and that's a significant spread. If it's on a rotation, if it's on
Yes.
rotation. So, Mr. Dodge, I guess if we don't do it, it winds up in the reserve account? If it's budgeted
If-
and not used?
Anything we budget, if it is not used, it ends up in a reserve account. That's correct.
Okay, so, but we never use that reserve account to give residents water relief at times. If we're going to budget for it.
But it
and put in reserve-
eventually has to be done. So if it's put off a year,
Right.
it's carried over, we don't budget. Like, there are many items in capital that we carried over from the prior year, some $7 million. We're expending those monies this year. It was put in reserves, but it's pulled back out as part of the capital for the next fiscal year.
Okay, so do you anticipate this project happening in fiscal year 17-18 or 18-19?
This item, this budget here is for 18-19.
And it's going to happen?
This, I've confirmed that with staff, and yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Cooper.
Yes, sir, thank you. Okay, so we had talked about the Unit A going out of service. Moving on then to the next item, which is 12, is a new permanent automatic generator set for the East Well Field. I'm sure you realize the East Well Field produces the lion's share of raw water to the water plant. For many years, the standby power system out there has been on a manual basis, so when there's power outage, it's turned on manually. We'd like to see that be done automatically so that we don't have delays in delivering the raw water to the plant. Literally the time it takes for the staff to go out there and hook it up. So the idea is to get an automated system, and we have budgeted $160,000 for that for next year.
Question?
Mr. Schwartz?
What technology is in place for someone to monitor 3 well fields during a storm and to see whether or not they're online or offline?
Very good question. The plant has the SCADA system where the computers are hooked up to every pump has a sensor, and the pump sensor will put pressure that when the line is pressurized, the sensor will talk to the computer and tell the operator what the pressure is. So if the power goes out, the pressure goes to 0, he's alerted. They send the guy out with a truck down the street, pulls in. If there's no power, he starts the generator, and it's back online. He's manually disconnected it from FPL, awaiting the water to be, I'm sorry, the electricity to come back online. Then when it does, he disconnects it manually. This building just did that automatically. Perhaps the IT was a little slow, but the automatic sense of that is what we want at the water well field.
So this technology, it's an instant feedback irrespective of weather conditions?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Thank you.
Just had a conversation with the vice mayor. I bought a generator after Wilma, full house generator.
Yes.
Had a portable. I understand exactly what you're saying. This is the way to go. This is 2018. This is the way to go.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along then. We're on to item number 13, and this is another standard operating procedure for a water utility to replace pumps. The categories are high service pump and spray pump. The high service pumps are the very high horsepower, high flow pumps that are delivering finished water to the network. That's what pumps the water to the houses, and when you turn on your tap, that's why water comes out. Those things run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do a heck of a job, but they need to be replaced. So we have 2 on tap, pun not intended, for next year for the high service pumps, and 1 smaller object. It's just a pump that helps the accelerators clean themselves better for next year, $130,000.
Yeah. Good question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Castillo.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you and Carl and Charlie for answering my many questions before the hearing. It saves a lot of time to ask them in advance. And so, but one, I'm looking at these pumps, And I neglected to ask you a question that's always been on my mind. So during Irma, the pumps were struck by lightning, we are told, and that's why they were out. Is that correct?
It is partially correct, sir, if I may elaborate.
Yes.
The pumps that went out in the storm were the well pumps.
Great.
The ones that we just talked about providing standby power to. And these are the pumps that are at the complete other end of the plant that take the wells take the raw water to the plant for treatment. Goes through the plant, comes out the other side. And then these pumps pressurize the heck out of the water and shoot it off into the system. They're called a high service pump. That's what these are.
Okay, but in terms of the pumps, I guess then it's about the other pumps. And
Yes.
I hate to switch gears on you, but
That's
I
okay.
do want to ask the question, because I don't know to what extent we can or have, since that event, taken steps to avoid this. I mean, obviously, we can't stop lightning from happening, but are they better protected against lightning? Do they have to be buried? Do they have to be enclosed? What do we do in order to better protect these pumps from being struck?
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to answer that. The pumps that are there have standard building code type grounding systems. And it just, providentially, tomorrow at 11 a.m., I'm meeting an electrical engineer at the site of the Eastern well field. You're welcome to join us. And he is an expert in lightning protection.
Good.
So he's going to be looking at what additional beyond building code standard requirements could or should be done. In addition, Mr. Smith has already brought the idea of covering them and some other ideas related to the wall and security and stuff like that. But tomorrow at 11, if you want to join us, we're kicking off that project.
Unfortunately, I can't join you tomorrow at 11, but I look forward to the memo where you tell us how we're going to better protect that, because as you know, that's a concern for us. And I'm sorry for the deviation. Please continue. And thanks again for all of your answers.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I might add that over 50 years
Yeah,
of our city, this is the first time
right.
that magnitude happened, whether it was a tornado. We still don't know actually what happened. But
That's correct, and the city
pretty good.
does keep spare parts and motors on hand, and that helps, but we certainly are going to look into it and provide some feedback.
Question.
Mr. Schwartz?
City Manager, it was just mentioned that we keep spare parts, but during the storm, we didn't have that specific part. We had to go up to West Palm Beach to get it in order to get the wells online. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what steps have we taken, either in the budget or if we already operationally changed, to make sure that we have these things in stock so we don't have to wait?
We have made that, and I did mention it to a gentleman who asked that question at the Hurricane Town Hall meeting the other day, and we have made those accommodations, and we'll continue to do that.
So we have.
I mean, if all three went out, it would be kind of difficult. That was a very, very unusual thing, but we do maintain spare parts at our storage facility.
Specifically that
Yes.
that one item, we have at least one on hand at all times?
Yes, in fact, Mr. Kennedy this week was working on that very subject, and he confirmed that there are 3
On hand.
on hand.
Beautiful.
Okay,
Moving right along.
move right along.
We're on to
14.
item number 14. This is another sort of miscellaneous other equipment category. And we have a few things. First of all, a little technicality, those high service pumps that we all know and love are electronically controlled by something called a VFD, variable frequency drive. It allows it to slow down and speed up all day, every day. Guess what? They burn out too, just like the motors. So we have plans for replacing those in addition to the motors. We also are hoping to install some motor-operated valves within the water plant, which will help to eliminate time delays in treatment processes and human error in the measurement of flow into the different units. We also would like to update the outdated SCADA system at the water plant, similar to the wastewater plant and the sewer pump stations. We have a little technical matter here called a hydraulic brake. Basically, it's just a change in the way that the water flows within the plant to help operations to run the plant more effectively, more efficiently regarding some of the processes there. It's just a physical change, commonly done in water plants. And we need a new flow meter on one of the affluent side, just is worn out and need a new one. So that's what that is. Moving right along, we're on to water distribution. Very familiar site, the fire hydrant. They break, they get run into, and the city has had an ongoing hydrant replacement program for many years. This is just another continuation of that for $30,000 per year. And now we're on to water replacements. We have 2 water replacement projects planned next year. The first is for Century Village, and Century Village has need of some inquiry and upgrade to their water main systems. We had some breaks and a disruption to service recently, and we would like to go back in next year and do some digging and checking and maybe some rerouting of pipes to help improve the service out there. We've allocated $250,000 for that. The next and much larger project is the Pines Village Water Main. Phase 1 is out for bid with your permission earlier this month, coming in next month. And of course, this is, everybody I think knows where it is, but you know, when you hear complaints about water pressure, it's coming from basically 3 things. The pipe is old, the pipe is too small, or the pipe is clogged. This is one of the 3 or 4 oldest areas of the city. This has the old style galvanized piping in the backyards. We don't do that anymore for obvious reasons. That pipe started out that big 45 years ago, so it's not that big anymore. So guess what? People aren't getting their water pressure, et cetera. The pipes and the main lines are also too small. They don't meet NFPA standards. So the main lines are being updated to the standard 8-inch. They're going to be put out in the street where they belong, not in the backyards. And then at the same time, we're going to be moving the water meters from the rear yards to the front yards, again, to help with maintenance and, of course, with meter reading, and to standardize, because that's the way they all are in the city, and that's the way they all are in all cities. So this is the first of a series of water main improvement projects that's on the 5-year capital plan. This, as I say, is out to bid, and we hope to have this encumbered by the end of this fiscal year. Next and final category is 17. We have, again, a bit of an aggregate of a variety of other equipment type things. First of all, we have something simple like various tools and equipment. Then we go on to the purchase of an air stripper, which this is water distribution. So what that does is it helps to remove disinfection byproducts. You're all familiar with that from the system. It could be placed out west where Jacobs is and originally identified it as an improvement. So we have budgeted for that. And then we have the lift station crew. Oh, that's a typo. Can't be lift station. Could be water pumping station crew. Vehicles and reaching the end of their useful life. Obviously, that happens from time to time. We also have the updates to the automatic meter reading system. We'd like to implement the next phase of that. And very minor item, pressure transducers, another maintenance, ongoing maintenance type of item. So that concludes the 17 categories of projects. Any other questions?
Good job, Mr. Cooper.
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Seifert, question?
My light on, thank you. A question for you on the advanced metering infrastructure. Could you give us a status of like where we currently are with that? Because I know we have some of them, some in place, and time frame that we're looking to have this implemented citywide.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to use my marital counseling skills and repeat back to you what you said. And that is, you're asking, what is the status of the automatic meter reading system, not the meters?
Actually, both, because
Okay.
you have to have one in order for the other to happen, is my
Okay.
understanding, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for a meter in the city to be read automatically, where are we with those actually up and operating, running currently? And what is what is your plans, what's the schedule for going forward?
Okay. I'm going to need some support to answer that. I'm going to look to the staff to help me out, but I'll give you what I know. And that is that right now, the automated system consists of what is called a drive-by. So the guy has the software in his hand, and he goes by the meter and it picks it up. Now, not all meters have that, so we also have manual meter reading that we have had in the past. So that's where we are now in terms of the technology. The next step of technology that we want to go through is to have all those new meters, as they go in with a little antenna. And that antenna can broadcast not just to the car, but it can broadcast to a central collector that then broadcasts that to the utility department. So the next step is to go to this system that aggregates all the meters and is read automatically, that eliminates the manually and eliminates the drive-by component. That's the next step in the technology. Now, in terms of the percent complete of meter replacements and things of that nature, I can't give you that answer, so I'll look to some support from the
Well,
staff.
we can get that information. Commissioner Seipel, we can get that unless you want it now.
Well, if somebody has it easy, I'll take it. If not,
Mr. Smith, do you have it?
Riley Smith Utilities. We've changed out approximately 1,800 per year for the last few years, and we're gravitating that way. As you know, we have a double check of backflow prevention coming, and then also, so in the last year, year to date, we've only changed out 1,000, but we're moving forward with it.
Any questions, Commissioner
So for the
Seipel?
last couple of years, we've tried to be around 1,800, a little slower this past year, but we're gearing back up again?
That's correct.
Okay, so like 1,800 a year
Or more.
Or more.
We're hoping a lot more. We've changed technology quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
advanced.
Yeah, I know there was stuff on a telephone pole or something.
Right,
stuff was
right.
happening. So do you have in your mind, a projected end-all date when we should be completed by that date? What your wish list of when it would be done?
48,000 meters is a lot of meters. I would be reluctant to put a number on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartz?
Thank you. Administration provided me, Commissioner Seipel, the information. I had asked how many meters do we have and where are we on replacement. I'd like to have the administration provide you guys the same information I have, but for the purposes of this discussion today, manually read right now, we have slightly more than 37,000 meters being read manually. There's just slightly over 3,100 meters that are being read through technology. Some are wireless and some are mobile. Of the wireless, only 1/3 of the total is wireless, so that requires the drive-by mode. So roughly 40,000 meters, and we have a total of just over 3,000. And of the 3,000, 923 are actually remote. So we're not even close to where we should be. I remember 6 years ago this month, I brought an item forward for this specific wireless technology. Once City Center was built, to go ahead and take those funds and make every meter in the city wireless so people could go online and see their consumption on a daily basis as you would with your FPL meter. If we had that technology and that ability to do that right now, there would be such a drop-off in the amount of calls and inquiry coming into the water department about where's my use and why am I seeing a skew from here and there. So, look, it was proposed 6 years ago. I'm just happy that we're finally getting it off the ground. But Commissioner Seipel, we're like just hitting a speck of sand in this year's budget for this technology. And if administration can give us an idea of when this is going to be like a percentage-wise, you know, benchmark, when will 20% of our meters be done? When will 80% of our meters be done? How long will that take? We know what the cost is. And I would think that the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost. So that's my comments on that. Thank you.
Mr. Dodge, can you get all of that information to us, please?
We can provide a report on that, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Vice Mayor.
may I ask City Manager a question on that?
Go ahead.
Mr. Dodge, on that report that you'll be providing to us, can you then, I see that we've got, for this whole item here, there's a little over $1 million that's budgeted for it. Can you give us then in that report, again, some time frame, and is it more beneficial to the city to sort of up the speed of doing this as opposed to spreading it out over a period of time? And if so, the corresponding cost with being able to do that, you know, putting a bigger team into doing it as opposed to spreading it out over a number of years. Could that be part of your report to us as well?
Yes,
Mr.
it
Dodge?
can.
Okay.
Yes, it can.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
And Mayor, one last point.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say first, great presentation. And
Thank
I'm
you.
reserving all my questions. I just want to ask a point of clarification just to
Go
help me
ahead,
with this
Vice
one
Mayor.
here. So what you just spoke about, and you're mentioning AMI, I just want to clarify, you certainly mean AMI and not AMR.
I think the definition of those can be overlapped, and I'm not sure what your question is. Could you please repeat it?
That's exactly why I'm asking you that question. They have distinct meanings, however, they are frequently overlapped, and I just want to make certain that you are not talking about AMR versus AMI. There is a need for me to know that. Thank you.
Okay, but in our presentation, we have AMI. That is correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right.
Mr. Mayor, that's not my question. I could see that.
I got it.
The question I'm asking, all I'm asking is that what you
Good question.
intent? Is that the proper definition? As you said, AMI and AMR can be overlapped. Is it truly AMI? That's all I'm asking.
Good question. Good question.
Yes,
Commissioner-
I'm going to ask for some support on that question. Is that all right? Can I get some support?
Mr. Smith?
We are. We do have quite a few of the R450 meters, which are AMR, and we're changing out. We're going to all R900s, which is AMI.
Okay, Vice Mayor? All right. Commissioner Castillo?
Yeah, on the issue of the meter, we actually talked about this once before, and I believe that the presentation was that you don't change all the meters out at once. No water utility does that because they have a useful life. So if you change them out all at once, X number of years from now, you would face this enormous expense as they age out. The real issue is how many of them have currently aged. So what you do every year is you budget a certain amount in order to change out those that need to be changed out as a question of ordinary upgrade and maintenance because they've reached the end of their useful life, or for those that break prematurely. That's
Yes.
sort of the way that you budget for this, correct?
Yes, and
Pretty
that
much.
is ongoing.
Okay, so the real question I think that we're trying to get to in our own different ways is whether the 1,800 is the sufficient number. I never got a clear answer to how many of the meters that are out there right now have already passed their useful life. And I don't have a clear sense of that. And that's what the frustration is. And it wouldn't surprise me if that was a large number, because for a number of years during the recession, we did everything that we could to hold the line to not spend additional money that taxpayers did not have. So the fact that I might get an answer that's behind the eight ball might be fodder for some to, pull their hair out and jump around. But for me, it would be something that I would understand. And then the question would be, okay, so here's the presenting problem. How do we work our way out of it? And what is the appropriate number for us to be budgeting in order to get ourselves out of this in a reasonable way, so that our cadence going forward can be more predictable about how to budget for this thing and how to replace them on a regular basis. And additionally, when we talk about the cost, we're moving in this direction because they generate cost savings, correct? So I don't know what the swap is between the cost of the installation and the savings, and that's not been presented to me.
Mr. Mayor?
That's what I asked them.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Cooper?
No, I asked
No, the
Mayor.
mayor.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to repeat what Commissioner Seipel did. What was requested, we will look at the factors, and if in fact it would be more efficient for us to try to speed this up. But again, the question is good. We have to look at what the lifespan of each one of those meters
Right,
are.
and then the
we'll
sec-
provide that as part of the report that was requested.
And if I could make the suggestion, and I know that you would look at it anyway, Mr. Manager, because that's the way you do business, sometimes we can't pay everything with cash. Sometimes you have to borrow in order to do it. And I understand that sometimes that means that you end up paying a little bit more in the long run. But if you want to get things done, you have to use some credit, particularly when you're a little bit behind the eight ball, because that's what makes it happen. So I'm all for paying for cash and moving on, but sometimes you have to generate some credit.
Thank
And that's just the way it is.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schwartz?
Thank you. My question to the administration was, how many meters have been replaced since October 2016? And what I mean by 2016 is the 16-17 budget. 2,219. How many are replaced manual
Are
red?
you asking the question?
No, I'm just providing the
He's
information.
reading from the memo we provided.
Just for clarification, because
Okay.
I want to make sure that my timeframe is clear. Since 2016, October 2016, 2,219 meters have been replaced. How many of those been replaced in manually read versus signal technology? Manually read 733, signal 1486. The type of installation, and this one might make sense to the Vice Mayor. The signal technology R450 wireless and R900i. The new installations are the R900i. How many of these have been installed? How many of each type have been installed since 2016? Again, manually read are still being installed, 97, and signal technology, 247. So I asked the question about how many of these have been on the exception report. A couple weeks ago, we asked about the exception report, meaning that they just can't be read and they pop up. There was a total of 3,592.
That was over a many-month period.
This was over a 2-year period.
Yes. If you look on
Yeah.
a monthly basis, I believe
Yeah.
the last month it was 300 and
Yeah,
something.
the average for the R450 is 96 since October of 2016, and the average per month of 389 since February. And as far as the dollars being spent, Commissioner Seipel, 781,000, slightly over that, was budgeted, and it's basically been spent. So whatever's been budgeted has been spent since 2016. So if you split that down the middle at 780, divide that by 2, that's how much we've been spending in the last 2 years. So we've got 39,000 meters to get to.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Schwartz.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Dodge, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.